Welcome to Securing Digitalization, the Siemens Cybersecurity podcast. Today we will talk about, again, the future, the year 2030 specifically in cybersecurity. And you might wonder, well, Andreas, you spoke to Andreas Kind. There's another episode. He's doing very important research on topics like artificial intelligence in cyber and about quantum computing. But the big question is not just, do we understand these technologies, but how specifically do we use them in order to keep companies more cyber secure? How do we implement them? Do our people understand these technologies? How do they apply and use them? And I'll talk about exactly that. How do we use new technology in the year 2030? How do we apply it? And I do this with Natalia Oropeza, Siemens AG Chief Cybersecurity Officer, and Saman Farsian, the Head of Cybersecurity Strategy at Siemens. Hi, both of you. Natalia, we want to look towards the future, which will bring more and more digitalization. Are we just becoming more and more insecure? Are we maybe just going too fast?
Well, Andres, before we look into 2030, let's look 10 years ago, and I tell you a small story. 10 years ago, I was sitting in the IT management board of another company different than Siemens. And then one colleague of mine, and I will call him Peter. He came into the room and Peter did a great presentation about how could he use cloud in order to set up a development environment. 10 years ago, in order for us to set up such a development environment, meaning hardware, servers, database, and software, we needed, like, in the best case, weeks, if not months, purchase orders, installations in the data center, cabling, configurations, you name it. Now, what Peter was presented was fantastic. Because you can imagine if you can speed up the deployment of such an environment, then you can speed up the development of software, which is the core or one of the cores for digitalization. Now I was sitting there really torn apart. Because one part of me was thinking, my God, this is it. This is what technology is made for, to speed up. And this speed, that this is the speed that we need in order to deploy it and speed up as well digitalization. And with that, solve the problems of the world and solve the problems of the company I was working for at that time as well. And now the other part of me was thinking, oh my goodness. You are the chief information security officer of this company. And of course, this technology and the use of this technology has not always only benefits, but a lot of risk. So probably the best thing to do now, Natalia, is to prevent the use of cloud.
So you were really torn inside. On the one hand, it was like, oh, brilliant. This is great technology. We'll speed things up. And the other was like, oh, wait. Do we lose control? I have to stop this.
Yeah, and of course, stopping is not an option. But my job is to enable Siemens to accept and to deal with as much risk as it is needed in order to speed up digitalization, which means if we speed up digitalization, more software, more connectivity, more attacks, more vectors of attacks. And therefore, we need to protect, detect, and defend more. And in everything that we do, and I mentioned protection, detection, and defense, everything what we do in this case to protect Siemens, and not only us, but other companies as well, generates a lot of data. And this is the good news. Listen to what I say. Then more digitalization. We generate more data in the protection, in the detection, and in the defense of companies. Now you can see the big advantages that we have against the cybercrime, because the hackers, they need one successful hit to damage companies. Completely the opposite. We companies, we need to protect, detect, and defend everything in the company. And that generates a lot of data. And that data becomes to be our best friend. Because if we use it wisely, and if we use the current technologies like AI and generative AI, then we can, again, protect, defend, and detect better, quicker, and most effective. And now I know that we are going to talk about, now we are talking about 2030 and what we can do in 2030.
But I get the journey. Like 10 years ago, you had this eureka moment of insight. Oh, wait, let's take the risk. Let's take the necessary risk. Let's take all the benefits we get through the necessary risk. And that was cloud then. Today, it's different technologies. But the more digitalization we allow, the more we digitalize, the more attack vectors we have. And the biggest weapon then for us is data. All the data that's generated through digitalization. Now, if data is our biggest weapon, we need to talk more about it. But before we go there, I would like to kick it over to Saman. Saman, 2030. What do you think will be the world we live in terms of cybersecurity? What are your scenarios, and into which world will we apply this secret superpower of more data?
I believe there will be two big questions that we need to answer first before we look into that year. On the one hand, we ask ourselves whether the world of the governance of cybersecurity rules will be more harmonized, similar rules all over the world and the biggest markets, or will we see a more fragmented world, a lot of different rules that actually do not fit well together.
So if just to make sure I understand, the idea of will cyber rules, say in the US, be similar to those in China, so I can have one product for both markets, or will they different, and then, oh God, a different product for every market?
Very, very good example, exactly, because here we have, just recently, take the example of the US and China. The government in China says, no longer US chips in the products that you have in critical operators. So you see, actually, these are the questions that we are facing ourselves right now. How to design our products to make sure we can operate them in all of the countries that we are serving.
So one dimension, more harmonization, more fragmentation. It looks like a bit more like fragmentation at the moment. What's the other dimension, Saman, for 2030?
The second dimension is actually the significance of cyber trust. So we ask ourselves, will it in the future be just a hygiene factor to have cybersecurity designed in your products? So nobody cares, actually, the cost is key. Or will you differentiate yourself as a company the more you invest and build into your products by design?
So it's a bit like with electrical devices. Here in Europe, we have a standard which is called CE, Charlie Echo, and the CE label says like you're not going to get an electrical shock if you use this device in a normal way. A bit like that, just in cyber. That would be the hygiene scenario. It's just there.
Exactly, and you can also, think further. You would have a grading systems of how cyber secure it is, red light traffic system and so on. The degree and the quality of cybersecurity in your products, you can build on that. The more people are willing to pay a premium for cybersecurity, the higher it is trusted.
Now, since you're head of strategy for cybersecurity at Siemens, of course you would put these dimensions on a diagram, which gives you 4 quadrants. And which combination do you think is the most likely for 2030?
I personally believe, and the example I just gave is one of those proof points, that we will see more and more fragmentation. You see the geopolitics go in a direction that governments, and for sure out of anxiety and fear that other superpowers might disrupt their operations, their critical infrastructure, go into the direction of putting new laws, new regulations on a very, very fast pace to just protect their economies and their countries. It is going to happen, no question. But the degree we are going to see, and here also we as industrial companies, as alliances and partners, can play a big role. On the other hand, I also believe that it's not just going to be a hygiene factor to have a cybersecure product. So the relevance of cybersecurity is growing. It's actually a value add if you can, over the life cycle of your systems, of the operations in factories, data centers, hospitals, you as a provider of such products and solutions can ensure the customers that it's going to be secure from inception to operation and beyond. So that this will become key, that customers are willing to pay a premium for cybersecurity. This is how I see the world.
Natalia, when you listen to that, that's Saman's expectation. Not sure what's yours. How do we get ready for whichever scenario is going to play out?
So the number one thing that you need to do, Andreas, is the basis, which is to be efficient and adaptable. And that means in cybersecurity is in their cybersecurity operations, you need to use yourself these kind of technologies that are arising out there. So cloud, you need to make sure that that you focus on the core, on what is important, on what add value. You need to use tools like AI. You need to make sure that you are very efficient in the execution of cybersecurity. And I give you a reason for that. We companies, we certainly have a cost per vulnerability or a cost per incident. And this is what it costs all of us to deal with an incident or to deal with or to close a vulnerability. Let's say it's 10 euros per incident, 10 euros per vulnerability. Now, we have a number of incidents or vulnerabilities per month to deal with. Let's say 100. 100 incidents and 100 vulnerabilities. So if we all know from the publications that we see that this is going to increase probably exponentially, now you can do the math and see if by 2030 you are going to be able to afford that cost as a company. So you need to be efficient. This is number one thing.
So, which means if you kept the procedures and processes you have now, you would have to hire 100 times more cybersecurity professionals. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And therefore we have the same task that other businesses have to automate, to modernize our processes and our tools.
So what I hear from you is efficiency is going to be big on that journey to whatever scenario 2030 is going to be like. We have to do it. Innovation is going to be crucial. What else?
I wouldn't go there that fast. I prefer to follow the following order. So I will say efficiency, 1. Second is, that is very much related to the first one, is to leverage the ecosystem. So that means you have to make sure that you don't reinvent the wheel. And the ecosystem for me is internally. So we have a very big company. That includes IT, includes technology, includes the businesses. So we have to make sure that we do things only once. And we also have partnerships, very important ones. And we have Charter of Trust. This is a set of 16 partners. And in that regard, we also need to make sure that we all develop solutions only once. And there are many examples. I will not go there today because otherwise we spend the rest of the time.
So efficiency, ecosystem, work with others. What else, Natalia?
The other ingredient that is very important is having a growth mindset. A team of people that is able to change and adapt constantly. And for that, we have in Siemens a very good framework. We have our growth talk, so we provide feedback. We think about what can be improved and what is it that we need to do different from what we are doing as people, as persons, to adapt to the future, right? That accompanied with trainings and with whatever we need in order to adapt as persons, as people. That's very important. In that regard, diversity, inclusion play an important role as well. Now, the last one I left for the last, because in my eyes, is actually what the core of everything, right? All what I mentioned until now, they are enabling you to achieve innovation. And that innovation for us is to have a data-enabled cybersecurity, which is part of our strategy. And this is what we have been talking about, using the data that we gain from the processes of protecting Siemens.
I really love this perspective because it's changing the way I see things now, right now, as I listen to you. I spoke to Andreas Kind and he shared with me, look, and this is AI and that, what is going to change? And look, here's quantum computing. But that, if I understood you well, Natalia, is not innovation. Innovation is, how do we use these technologies? How do we enable people? How do we create impact? What do we actually achieve by using these new technologies?
Yeah, that's my view, Andreas. And if you don't succeed in the other three, efficiency, ecosystems, and growth mindset, you will not be able to be successful in the innovation part.
Saman, when you look at this from your perspective, can we drill down on these a little bit? Can you give us examples for how we increase efficiency, how we find the right talent and make sure there's growth mindset and people grow and adapt? What about the ecosystem? Can we drill down on these?
Absolutely. And Andreas, before drilling down, the examples that Natalia just gave and these priorities, we call them also no regret moves, because we were talking about scenarios in the future. Whatever the future might look like, these will definitely help us and these will bring us forward. So we won't regret them. And then let's take now a deeper look. Take innovation. Of course, we could invent a lot of things, and we are doing, as you just said. Andreas Kind told you about post-quantum computing and AI technologies down the line. But very pragmatically, what you need today, what we are doing today, moving from a world with walls and firewalls to a completely new architecture, and we call it zero trust. I mean, you have heard about it. You just, rather than giving your credentials once and then you're in, at every twist and turn, for every file you want to access, there are different mechanisms, rights, procedures. So by default, you need to show your credentials and ID at all times.
So it's like in the old world, you want to pass the firewall, you show your credential once, but then you're in. Now it's the equivalent, like you have millions of mini police officers that regulate access, not just once at the gate, but whatever you do in the system, you have to re-ID yourself again and again.
Absolutely, and this is exactly fitting then to the ecosystem paradigm shift that Natalia said. I mean, we could then, these million devices and these checks at every twist and turn, you need software for that. You need software to check it at all times, to constantly prove your health status. We could build that software. We have a huge team of developers and software experts. But hey, somebody has been doing this out there. I mean, there are companies that do this day in, day out. They are very good at this. And we focus ourselves on our processes, on our domain know-how, rather than reinventing the wheel. So we build on our ecosystems to be more efficient.
And that might be, in many areas it's standard, right? You say, do we have anything in the market? Great, we don't have to build it. Weirdly, in cybersecurity, very often, first impulse is, okay, great, let's code it, rather than to see whether something's there that we can.
Exactly. We buy more, a lot more than we used to, and we make less. Why? Because it's simply more efficient.
Ecosystems. Great. What about the other points? Efficiency, you touched upon it, innovation, talent. Can you give me more examples, Saman?
Let's jump on talent. It is super hard. And I tell you, it's really hard to find talent on the market. There is way more demand and need that we just can't find around the corner, people that are capable of supporting us on this journey. So sometimes you need to go a bit unusual ways. We have just launched a big program. Just an example. We enable young women in Africa to work in this sector. We call this African Girls Can Code Initiative. You have now these 625 highly motivated young women in Africa, all across the continent, They participate. They want to become the future cybersecurity ambassadors. Yeah, and then we code them. We learn them to code. We learn them to hack, to protect companies. And yeah, one day, if they are keen to join Siemens or other companies, this will be one of the streams that we can attract young talent, junior talent that is willing to cybersecure our future digital world.
That's amazing. By the way, I'm going to Senegal very soon. I heard that there are also some young women in Senegal taking part in the program. Would be amazing. Would be amazing to meet them and learn from them hands-on how the programs are going. And still, if I listen correctly to you, Natalia, you said with the exponential increase in digitalization, in data, in attack vectors, even if all 625 women were to join Siemens as cybersecurity professionals, it wouldn't be enough. How do you augment talent? How do you make each and every individual more efficient in their work?
Well, we have also other programs. This is like the Cyberminds Academy. This is running in countries like Portugal, like Spain, Germany, and soon Mexico, I hope. Important is for me to say that the African Girls Can Code, we are doing this together with the UN and, of course, with our office in South Africa. So this is a joint effort that we are all doing together with the IT as well. And so to your question, Andreas, I will say there are two ingredients I would like to mention here. The number one is, of course, again, people. And we talk about the talents, how to train the talents, how to grow the talents. But also, it's very important to engage the talents. So the strategy that we have will be reviewed with all the businesses, and we have to engage everyone in Siemens and understand the needs, especially the business needs, so that we can be aligned and together agree on the goals that we want to achieve. So what do I name? Efficiency, ecosystem, growth mindset, and innovation in terms of data-enabled cybersecurity. That needs to be our strategy. So Saman is working together with the businesses in order to have this alignment. This is very important because it's about people. It's always about people.
So we could have the best cyber strategy in the world. If it does not fit the needs of the business, it is a terrible strategy.
That's exactly correct. Now, the other element that is very, very important, and we mentioned that already, is data. Data is this connecting tissue, you can call it as well, capillary system. And this data will give us speed and automation as well. And it has to be as well real-time speed, especially if we are under attack. So in order for us to achieve this, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be, it's not something that we will achieve overnight. It's something that we will achieve over time. And definitely, important here is to have a strategy. We cannot just do actions that are not aligned.
So what I heard from both of you, Saman and Natalia, is whatever the world around us will look like in 2030, whatever the cyber environment will be, there are a couple of no-regret moves. There's efficiency. I need to lean into the ecosystem. I need to find the right talent. I need to help that talent work efficiently, augment their powers, if you will, maybe through AI. And in the end, all of that I consider innovation. But that's a lot to do. Where do I start? And Natalia, I bind it together with the right data strategy. How? That sounds very abstract still to me. How does data connect things? At Siemens, you call it security intelligence layer. What exactly is that?
This is the core of our strategy and the core of our architecture. So this is really the heart of everything, you can tell. And what we call threat intelligence or security intelligence is the collection of information or data that we have produced from the execution of the different processes, protection, detection, or defense in cybersecurity. I give you an example. Whenever we have an incident, we look into the indicators of compromise. These are the, let's say, the patterns of processes, tactics, and tools that the attackers use in order to do that attack. And this is this set of processes, tactics, and tools. This is what we call indicator of compromises. Those indicators compromises become to be data that we can always use in order to detect in the detection phase now whether something abnormal is happening and whether these attackers are somewhere else doing something.
So the more data I have from all parts of the business, the better prepared I'll be. A big advantage for a big company like Siemens. On the other hand, Saman, it sounds great, right? We have all this data, but you need to connect data from very different sources. And some of the data has very different quality from the rest. How do you bring the data into formats that connect with one another?
To start a bit more abstract, even, I mean, you don't know whether you have all the data that you need, whether it's accurate, whether it's even meaningful. Giving you a concrete example, you want to connect data from different sources of different quality. Here comes, let's say, Grandpa. He has his data on the floppy disk from the 80s.
It doesn't have to be Grandpa. I used them on a Commodore. We played computer games. So.
Exactly. I also still know those floppy disks. Very nice. And this floppy disk with full of data, I mean, I don't know, 16 megabyte, 8 megabyte, how much this was back then. Here is my data, go and use it. And then you have another group, the cloud natives. They have everything on the cloud. They tell you, here is my data. I just forgot the credentials, but go and use it. It's all there. So you need to find the access first. You need to understand on which cloud. And there comes, let's say, the cyber veteran that gives you his hard disks, multiple encryption methods, multi-factor authentication, tells you, here's my hard disk, go and use it. You might not have access to it, but it's all there. This is the challenge. You have different mindsets. You have people using that data differently. You don't know whether it is correct. And it's very, very resource intensive to collect, analyze, and do something with the data, something meaningful.
I find the archetypes very convincing. And on the second one, the cloud person that lost the credential, I actually have a friend who lost his login details for a Bitcoin wallet that used to have $2 million in value. But of course, it does happen. It does happen. Now, so what do you do now? You have these very different types of data in different formats. How do you bring it together, Saman?
You need the experts again at this point. You need, first of all, a very collaborative spirit. So people need to understand why we want them to share data, why we want to connect data. It's no longer about, this is sensitive data, this is just for my operations. It's about an interconnected ecosystem of operations, systems, networks that you no longer can separate from each other. So you need to actually provide the right framework. You need to connect it in the right way, and you need to understand why you want to use that. So it's about making the teams more efficient again. It's about to actually have a very streamlined approach of looking into that data and doing something with it in real time.
So that's still people work until you have a system that pumps that connect and bring all the data together. You need to build it, but you need to build it intelligently, as Natalia said, with the objectives of the business in mind. And now when you connect all of that, and you mentioned it's like building your house, your architecture, you've built your nice house where you get the data, where you use the data intelligently. But Natalia, we're part of a highly connected system. By definition, cybersecurity is about my connections with the outside world. How successful can we be if we just get our own house in order?
Andreas, this is going to be done step by step. And now the good news is we are not starting today or tomorrow. We have started already. So we have very good foundations. One of them is the team itself. So the team, and you remember well, we have 5 years with this organization, this holistic organization that is including the product security, the OT security, meaning the security that we need in the factories, and as well the IT security. And the team is working together into all these three topics. Certainly not yet completely perfect, but the team is working on that. And when I talk about the team, I don't only talk about a central team. I talk about the teaming that we do with the businesses. SI, mobility, DI, and even the cooperation that we have with health engineers. And we have established, in order for us to have this cooperation, very successful, the cybersecurity board. So we meet regularly, we decide on priorities, and so on and so forth. Number 2 foundation, I spoke about the internal organization, but I talk as well about the external one, the Charter of Trust, the Charter of Trust Partners. We started this journey 5 years ago. And we have come together. We have achieved already some results, like in security by in supply chain security, to agree on the 16 base requirements that we need to give to our suppliers.
Just a quick reminder for everyone. Charter of Trust, very briefly, what is the Charter of Trust?
Well, the Charter of Trust is a partnership that we decided to do 5 years ago, together with other 16 companies like Siemens. So to mention a few, I could mention Atos, IBM, Allianz, but also MHI, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, also Microsoft recently joined, right? So we tried to cover geographies and also industries and cooperate together towards the cybersecurity of the digital world. And we have given us 10 principles, from ownership to security by default, to security in the supply chain, to education, to advocacy towards the governments in order to achieve regulations, the ones that we need to have. And we have been working together. We have come together, and we have issued a lot of results already. And I mentioned the base requirements for the supply chain as one of the results.
So what I take away from our conversation today is go for it. Take the risk, the necessary risk. But if anything, we need more digitalization, which means, unfortunately, there will be more attack vectors. Our biggest weapon, however, is data. And the more you have, the more intelligently you combine it, the better you're off. In data, big is beautiful, which is good news for companies that have a lot of it.
Correct, Andreas. And I want to add to all of this. I am, after 6 years, still so in love, so happy of the responsibility I have in Siemens. And I am so convinced that with the team that we have, the extended team of cybersecurity in Siemens, we will make this happen. No doubts about this.
Thank you so much. Natalia, Saman, take care, both of you. Have fun. Speak again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas.